This has huge implications for the Montreal Canadiens moving towards the trade deadline as Kent Hughes gave his mid-season press conference today and he revealed some strategy, including his strategy about trading for future draft picks. We have to get into all of that. Plus, he spoke on Ivan Demidov's timeline and just when he will be coming over to North America, including some other very interesting details about the whole situation. We got to get into all that and more coming up on this episode of Habs Digest. But Jesse, the first thing I want to get into, you can never have enough lane train in your life, right? Well, we got some very interesting stats that I think a lot of you will be very interested in. So let's just have a look at them. So if we take a look now, this is a tweet from Aldes. These are some of the craziest names you could ever associate with a defenseman. Only 3 defensemen have led rookie scoring midway through a season in NHL history. Nicholas Lidstrom in 91-92 and Bobby Orr in 66-67. Lane Hutson is the third. Not just that, Jesse. If we look at players, defensemen, basically any rookie defenseman who had at least 30 points through their first 42 career games. It's Lane Hutson, Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes, Shane Gosse are the most recent, and then before that, it was Vladimir Malakov. Hutson's one of only 4 defensemen in the past 31 seasons to have as many points as he does through 40 career games, Jesse. To see his name with the likes of guys like Quinn Hughes, Cale Makar, Nick Lidstrom, and Bobby Orr every single day definitely isn't getting old anytime soon.
It definitely isn't, nor watching him play, which is just so exciting. And if Lane Hutson really keeps up this pace that he's on right now, he's going to go down as one of the best defensemen, if not the best, he's still in the race, defensemen that have ever played this game. Woo. And that's absolutely such a bold claim. And I know I can't really believe it myself, but like the eye test and the numbers are backing it up all the way, which is absolutely just phenomenal to see while still playing a solid defensive game. The first defenseman in the 21st century to lead rookies in scoring. Yeah. It's just absolutely phenomenal. Like if we're looking at questions right now, like of why the Habs are in the mix, you know, why they're kind of doing well right now, look no further than Lane Hutson being a huge reason. How many times was it him, creating something, in the offensive zone, keeping that puck in, the amazing passes that really led to so many of the goals that's leading success. Just a point-making machine right now, really at the center of so much of the Habs' success.
It's crazy. Like, I don't even know. I've had people ask me, hey, has Hutson lived up to the hype? Yes, and more. Like, I can't wait to see what's in store for the future, because this is just the beginning, too. This dude's one of the youngest players on the team. I think if it wasn't for Slav, he would be the youngest on the team. And he's manhandling defenses. And even he himself is looking good on the defensive end. Maybe, he'll have that rookie wall at some point. Maybe that'll happen this year. Maybe teams will figure him out, but you can't figure out Lane Hutson. He's too shifty. He'll learn something to beat you before you can learn about him. Incredible to see his name with these other names. Let us know your thoughts on that down below. But Jesse, we got to quickly transition into some of the other stuff we wanted to talk about. And we got to talk about Kent Hughes' mid-season presser today. And, well, it was very interesting. He said a lot, right? He said a lot about a lot, and we're not going to cover everything in this. I suggest you go check it out yourself, of course, because it was very interesting. There was a lot of insights. But the first thing I want to talk about is what he had to say about Ivan Demidov. And, we all know that he went over to Russia and had that trip there. He did speak about that. We're not going to get into that in this video. But let's get into the quote here first. So what he had to say was, it's a unique case. Let's actually make this full screen for you guys. Well, there it is. It's a unique case. Drafting a player 5th overall where there was only one of us that had seen him play. Assuming that's Nick Bobrov, that's a crazy thing. So for us, it was a chance to check that box. We noticed his ice time had gone down for 10 straight games. I wanted to see where he was at and meet him face to face. The draft goes by so fast. We communicated that despite his individual results during the difficult stretch of low ice time, he is very important to us. And that's exactly what is going on? There we go. That is exactly what you want to communicate to your top prospect there in Ivan Demidov. And he also went on to say, Jesse, that there's no chance we'll get to see him this year just because the KHL contract runs out at the end of May. Not going to be possible even if the Habs make the playoffs. But very interesting insights here into Demidov, not only on his timeline, but into their scouting of him and the real reason behind going to visit him.
Kent Hughes to the rescue here. He saw that the ice time for Demidov was going down a little bit. So he said, okay, let me see if there's something to Rottenberg's logic here. It turned out that there wasn't, but he needed to make sure. He needed to check it out right now. Getting to see him really play right now in person for the first time is so big in preparation for next year. And we know that preparation's such a big part of that success. Obviously, I think, there was the part of, the Habs, needed to see Demidov, but also Demidov needed to see the Habs. So I think that was also a big part of his not mentioning, maybe just kind of that morale boost. He knows how important, he is for this team. And it's important, to really let him know about that. Go to see him at the best opportune time. His points, the ice time has just went up from there. So obviously another win from Kent W.
Absolutely. Kent W. doing some amazing stuff over there. So this Demidov situation is getting a little more clarity as time goes on. At this point, safe to say, well, we'll keep track of his season. He's not coming over this year, as we figured for a long time. But next September, that's when we're going to see him. A lot of great stuff. And in the meantime, Jesse, there's a lot of stuff that still has to go down for Kent Hughes. And he spoke a lot about where the team is at and his plans for the trade deadline. Because right now, that is probably the biggest thing going on around the Montreal Canadiens. Because there's a lot of guys on this team that we're like, do we keep them if the team continues to be good? Do we ship them off to try and get assets back? And there was a lot of questions directed by reporters at Kent Hughes about these very specific things. And well, let's just get into some of the stuff he had to say. The first thing, Jesse, he was making, he was making it very clear that he's like, I'm not going to get overzealous here. We have 22 games before the deadline. We have a lot to learn. We're happy we're playing well, but we have just 40 games played and we're just one game above 500. I don't want to celebrate. We haven't accomplished anything and we want to see how things shake up before the trade deadline and make a decision from there. And he went on to say this. He went on to say that I think we're on the right track with the players we have and the players we have coming. We don't want to be overconfident and do like other teams, like the Sabres coming close to the playoffs and then faltering, and Detroit too. But they're getting better. We don't want to be overconfident. Caught himself there without throwing him too far under the bus there, Jesse. You know, the Sabres and the Red Wings. Red Wings are on a 5-game win streak, by the way. 5-1 since hiring Tom McClellan. But before we get into what he said about trading for draft picks, I really like this attitude. This idea that, like, look, we don't even know if we're going to be a playoff team yet. Yes, we're playing great, but things can fall out. Montreal's now like behind 2 or 3 other teams for that playoff spot. Things can change fast, Jesse, and I really like the approach that Kent Hughes seems to be going into this deadline with, sticking with the plan he had from day one.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's so nice that Kent is definitely learning from some other teams here. And once again, he's playing chess. He's always thinking several moves ahead. And it's an interesting philosophy of like wanting to kind of keep, stacking up that pipeline for this team. He did mention, though, that even if we are, trading for those futures, that those futures, most likely that we're going to trade those there. But what's just really interesting to note, with Kent Hughes kind of going forward is that, like, most teams, they're either in like the win now sort of mode or all about the future. But he's kind of looking to take like a little bit of a hybrid approach here where it's like, okay, we want to start competing a little bit more, but finding ways to maybe kind of stack some prospects even more, kind of stagger it for the years to kind of keep filling up that pipeline. So once again, just like a novel approach from Kent Hughes to kind of thinking outside of the box of how we can really make this team a contender for many years to come, which we know has been always part of his plan.
And that's a fantastic transition because many years to come, like Montreal's planning to be a contender in a few years and for a long time after that. And so when it came to talking about trading, he was very, I don't know what to say. I don't want to say guarded because he wasn't like trying to be protective. He was just saying, we don't know yet. We still have a lot to learn before we get to the deadline. But one thing he did reveal, Jesse, was this. He said, if we're going to be making a trade and get futures, like you alluded to, we might push them back even further at this point. Whether we use those for a trade later, that's probably the most likely scenario, trading for futures. My answer is the same. We have 22 games to see where we are before we're ready to make any of those decisions. And this, to me, is like the pinnacle of like good management because we've seen it in other leagues. The example that comes to my mind is if you follow basketball at all, you'll know what happened to the Boston Celtics. They made the NBA Finals one year, and then they got the first overall pick because of a trade they had made years before, getting rid of some of the guys still on their roster. I'm not saying that's going to happen for Montreal, but what I am saying, Jesse, is making a trade now this year for a first or maybe second round pick down 3-4 years down the road. Not only does that give you more capital when you're maybe making that playoff push, you can say in like 2028, say, hey, I have an extra first and I have an extra second that I can trade for someone at the deadline. Or you could use those picks yourself, picks that might end up being higher up than your own pick in those drafts. To me, I loved this comment maybe more than anything, and I think it gave some real insight into these long-term plans that Hughes and Gorton seem to have.
And the picks still take time to kind of develop there. But, Kent Hughes, obviously, feeling that the team will be a little bit more competitive at that time. It's just a way of really balancing everything out. So it's going to be very interesting to see what he does leading up to the deadline. I think he's totally right to take a measured approach that we need to see where this team is at and really make a judgment call on Evans, on other players kind of as a result of that. And also he's kind of alluding the fact that like, you don't want to start becoming like too aggressive in trades too quickly, thinking that, okay, you're right there, at the playoffs like Detroit did, went out and got a bunch of vets, only to kind of find themselves back at square one. So again, amazing that he's learning. He's seeing different trends in the NHL of what's kind of working. And again, trust Kent Hughes to really, take a novel approach of really figuring out what's best for this team going forward.
You know, we're just gonna let him cook.
Someone cooked here.
Yes, they did. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait, Jesse. I mean, everything that comes out of Kent's mouth, everything that comes out of Marty's mouth seems to have me excited for the future. I want to hear what your guys' thoughts are on all the things happening right now. Let us know down below. That'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. We'll probably have some other stuff to talk about from this press conference coming up soon. But if you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It's completely free. You made it this far in the video, over 10 minutes in, and you like what you see. Well, we got stuff like this every single day. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.